Welcome back. You're watching the Press Club with me, Kendall Burton and Earl Bousquet. I want to shift our focus to perhaps one of the more controversial, I guess, for a big story this week, that of the attempted robbery in Kareli, which was caught on video, and the video has gone viral now, regionally, internationally, you know, as is possible now with the internet technology that we have. For those of you who are living under a rock somewhere and don't know, a thief attempted to break into somebody's house. One of the neighbors heard the commotion, went to look, found the guy, tied him up, called the neighbor and the police. Unfortunately for the thief, the neighbor got there before the police, and between himself and a couple of his neighbors exacted their own brand of justice on the thief. That exchange, and I'll use the word exchange for now, was caught on video, posted on the internet, and as we said, has gone viral. We've had a number of reactions from the public, locally, regionally, internationally, some in support of the actions of the neighbors, and some in sympathy for the thief, who feel that, you know, the neighbors were a little heavy-handed in how they responded. We've heard some of the media persons speak on it, talk show hosts, because apparently there's a distinction between talk show hosts and media workers now, which we can talk about a little later. So we heard the likes of Claudius Francis giving his take on it. I would like to hear your take on it. I heard you speaking about it on your show yesterday, but unfortunately I could not take the entire show in. So for those of us who were not able to, I'd like to hear your views on the videotape.
Yeah, first of all, I looked at it from the standpoint that vigilante justice is not justice, in that it is fighting crime with crime, something which the Prime Minister spoke about in his March 8th address, to say that, you know, while St. Lucia at the time of in the time previous to Operation Restore Confidence, St. Lucians had become fed up with what seems to be, again, coming back, that every day you wake up and you hear, you know, of a killing, or in gang warfare, or an exacted killing, etc., etc. So the argument in favor of Operation Restore Confidence, to justify it, was that something needed to be done, you know, to restore the society's confidence in the police force and its ability to handle the upsurge in crime at the time. And the argument that has been the basis for the impacts report investigation and the subsequent report, the conclusion is that it was done on the basis that even though people were fed up and frustrated with the worsening of the crime rate, it did not give the police, any police officer, the right to take the law into his or her own hands and engage in alleged extrajudicial killing to restore confidence, national confidence in the police. And my position is that if we want to say so to police officers, that the police should not take the law into their own hands, although they are police and guardians of the law, we should also be willing to take that, apply that to ourselves, because it is in fact illegal for any individual to harm another. But even there we are circumscribed by laws and by interpretation, because I grew up knowing and hearing police officers saying to my parents and other citizens, if you meet a thief in your house, kill him. Because if he has to kill you to get away, he will kill you. So that's how I grew up. And I always felt that it was just an unwritten something, and started to ask and to hope that if it was in the law, it would have been removed when there was the review of the criminal code. But it turns out that that is not so. And the police will confirm to any reporter who asks that the law specifically allows you to do just that. However, the police will also tell you that the law also says we can hang. But we don't do it anymore. So the fact that the law says if you meet somebody in your house you should kill them doesn't mean that you should, your first thought should be to kill anybody you see in your house, because the same law goes on and says you could use force to apprehend or subdue the person. But it also says you mustn't use excessive force.
Especially when that person no longer poses a threat, which is the argument in this case.
The argument in this case that the guy was tied and therefore having been subdued through a citizen arrest, that they should simply have called the police and allow them to do their job. Now, I'm not sure to what extent people are reacting to the fact that this thing has gone viral like a virus. You know, everybody can see it on their phone, and millions around the world, billions can see it through the internet. I heard Martinez Francois, human rights lawyer, accuse St. Lucia of being, you know, backward, ignorant, and all of the above adjectives for justifying those who justify, because you said you heard many positions. There are two positions on this, for and against. You know, and people try to understand. There are those who tell you they understand the for and they understand the against. But there's no mutual ground in that. You hardly have anybody saying, I don't care. But I suspect people are reacting more to the fact that that some people, in fact, not more, but many people who speak in outrage are reacting to the fact that they feel this is how St. Lucia is being seen abroad. You know, that it's a bad image for St. Lucia. People are going to be thinking that that is how. I think that's the initial reaction. But I think we need to, what I want us to look more at is the way in which, an issue I always raise, the way in which the technology is being misused in many situations, the ease with which power in the hands of powerless persons who have no idea about the extent of the power in their hands will misuse that power.
But would you consider it being misused in this case? Or,
well,
would it depend on who you ask?
It depends on who you ask, and it depends on who's answering, like who's asking.
Because in the case of the thief, it's very good.
Yeah.
Because now it's evidence that he can use in his court case if he chooses to pursue.
If he chooses to pursue, and that is another contentious point. You see, people more want to discuss whether the thief should have the right to charge the people who were his victims or the victims of his action. So we get caught up into our own interpretations of what the law says. The police end up arresting the guy, reluctantly charging him, but the police cannot charge the guys, but they're informing the guy who was beaten that if he so desires, he can charge them.
Yeah, because we forget, as human beings, all of us have basic human rights. As you're talking, I remember a case in the US a few years ago in which a family went on vacation. This guy, aware that the family was out, went into the house and leisurely went through it because he knew they're not coming back in a hurry. Went from room to room, took all that he needed, stocked it in the garage, sat down, had a meal, a shower, rested, and when he was ready, went into the garage to make his exit. Unfortunately for him, he locked the garage door and was trapped in that garage for the duration of the family's vacation. He was left to survive off some sodas that were there and some dog biscuits, I believe. When the family returned, obviously they called the police. The police arrested the guy on burglary charges. He in turn got a lawyer, sued the family for the mental anguish that he suffered during the time that he was trapped in the garage, and he won his case.
Well,
he was still a criminal, still charged, still had to pay, do time for his crime, but at the same time he suffered as a result of being locked on their property.
Well, we'll get back to the viral thing in a while, but if you're talking about cases, here's another one you might want to look out for the result of. And one of my sons was telling me today that a mother in the United States is suing Netflix for her daughter becoming pregnant. I wanted to know whether Netflix had a manual on how to make babies. And he said no, the lady's daughter had been invited by a friend to watch Netflix at his house. And she agreed, and he told her, well, since she's agreed and they'll be watching movies, she should walk with some food. And she walked with the food, and they sat there, they settled at the house and started flicking for a movie. And after a long period, they were not able to get a movie that both of them agreed to watch, so they ended up having sex. And the girl got pregnant. So the mother is suing Netflix for $50,000 for not having sufficiently attractive movies to have attracted, to have attracted her daughter, to avoid her having had to resort to having sex because Netflix didn't have movies. She wants 50 grand from.
I wonder how many people go to DVS or HTS.
No, well, I think if she wins that case, it will be an interesting precedent, a very interesting precedent. But going back to the going viral, I think I was making the point about misuse of the power of the technology, because I've seen some horrific. That one we're talking about was not the first. I have seen other video images on telephone in the hands of regular people of everything from a mother beating her daughter for allegedly misbehaving and not listening, and that is being recorded obviously with her knowledge, not and likely her consent, because she never stopped it. But that is out there, it's gone viral, and therefore it can be viewed. There was an incident in Soufrière where a guy was caught and beaten because he was caught stealing, and then in this particular case, like I was saying, it was not the guys who were beating who were recording themselves, you know, but they are the ones on TV. Was the person doing the recording doing it with a view to sharing that with the rest of the world? At what point was the decision taken to make it go viral? We also saw television. You know, we also saw the mics of television stations and media personnel being there, being witness to that. Now, was it just something worth filming because it's a news item? What's our role there to, I think you referred somewhere to, take that piece of paper there for me, you referred somewhere to a recent thing, a journalist, a Ugandan journalist.
Well, actually, he's a New York Times journalist.
A New York Times journalist. He said there's a difference between a journalist and a person whose work is to reproduce what has been said. And that is, I take that to also say, is our job just to record and report everything we see? Because there are certain images we do not see elsewhere. What was the role of the press in that thing? To cover it and show the world, or to find out whether that was something that was legal, and if it was illegal, how is it presented?
But you see, the press was not
justice
there for the beating. The press wasn't there for
wasn't
the
there
beating.
for the beating. Okay.
Right. So obviously they wouldn't have seen that.
Where was the guy, the tied guy, being interviewed?
That would have been after the beating, I suspect, happened, because the police would have arrived around the same time as the media.
So he was being interviewed in the police? In the police, or still tied?
Still tied. He was still tied. But the neighbors, you ask a good question. What was the intent in filming it? Was it because they wanted to make an example of him? Or was it because they were so shocked and disgusted by what was happening that they wanted to, you know?
Or was it because somebody simply had a phone and said, that's a nice thing to film?
Yeah.
You not to record.
With you for a break. Let's take a break. When we come back, we continue looking at that incident, as well as, like you said, the use of the technology, whether it's good or bad, pros and cons. We'll be right back.